Hello and welcome to the Socially Ambitious Podcast. I'm your co-host Liv.
I'm your co-host Jess.
And I'm your co-host Anna.
On this show, we'll be delving into all things social media, delegation, and influencer marketing.
Join us for insightful conversations on mastering work-life balance, pursuing your passions, and crafting the life you've always dreamed of.
Get ready for actionable tips and empowering discussions.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Socially Ambitious Podcast. I am your co-host Jess, and today I have an amazing episode with my good friend Laura Herde. She is an incredible woman and also just an incredible entrepreneur. She is a mindset and leadership mentor, and she helps high-achieving female CEOs wanting a seven-figure business and a thriving lifestyle. She's also the host of Unfuck Your Life podcast, and you guys might know me from over there because I went on her podcast a couple months ago and it was incredible. She is just a well of knowledge and wisdom, and honestly, selfishly, this was such an amazing episode because I just got to pick her brain on everything, and she genuinely is just such an amazing soul. She has such a great head on her shoulders, and we have such great tactical advice for anyone that might be a little stuck in their journey, in their spiritual journey, in their entrepreneurial journey, particularly women. We cover everything from really tactical advice and steps that you can take to pull yourself out of a rut to even going through a breakup as a deeply spiritual person that seems like they might have it all figured out, and how you just continue to navigate those things as a woman in your mid to late 20s. You know, like, I think a lot of people look at us from the outside, us being, you know, entrepreneurs, people that share their lives, and think that we might have it all figured out, but there's so much going on beneath the surface that we are still grappling with every single day. And it was just really, really, really refreshing to hear her take on it as someone who is, you know, presenting as someone who is a coach and a mentor. Like, you know, you look to these people and you say, oh, well, they kind of don't deal with anything, like they have everything figured out. But everything that she shared is so vulnerable and so real, and really just helped validate everything I've been feeling, especially, like, you know, with things like imposter syndrome and navigating that. So I think that you guys are really, really, really going to love this episode. I hope you do. Please take a screenshot, share it on your stories, tag us, tag me, tag Laura, tag Socially Ambitious. We love to know that you guys are listening, and we love you, and I'll see you on the other side. All right, guys, we are here on the other side with Miss Laura, who is a mindset and leadership mentor. Laura, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a long time coming. We might even have some listeners from your podcast because I went on her podcast a few months ago. So now it's a full circle moment.
That is so true. No, thank you so much for having me on. I'm super excited for this today.
I know. Thank you so much for coming on. So for our audience who may not already be acquainted with you, will you tell them a little bit about yourself and who you are and what you do?
Yeah, for sure. So as you said, like, I'm a leadership mentor. I've been doing this work in the coaching space for around 8 years by now, which is really crazy to think about, to be honest. It all basically started off as a personal brand on all things mental well-being and also like a little bit of travel lifestyle stuff. And yeah, eventually turned into a brand that would just like give women guidance, I guess. And my audience has always been mostly female. So I think for everyone listening right now, like, you're in exactly the right space, because this is like really who I'm talking to, is women who want more out of life. Like, this is also what I'm saying in my podcast intro. When you listen to it, you'll hear me say, for ambitious females wanting more out of life. And for me, for the longest time, I was that ambitious woman with like all these big dreams and goals, but like everything just felt super far away. And it's been a long way coming for me, like being in this point in my life, in my career now. And yeah, this is why I'm so passionate about like the work that I do, is because everything has been changing as I've been working on my mindset, my identity, my habits, healing from my past. And yeah, basically I started this journey almost a decade ago, like with my personal brand and sharing my journey online, and eventually turned into a business. And that has just grown over the years, which is super cool to see.
I love that.
Long story short, that's who I am and what I do, why I do it.
That's perfect. I'm really curious, what was the catalyst for this journey for you?
Oh, I love that you're asking that, because it's actually been quite emotional. I used to suffer from depression when I was a teenager. My parents had a very unhealthy relationship, and I mean, there were like a couple of reasons in my life at that point when I was around 11, 12 years old, when basically everyone was like starting to find themselves and go out dating and like living life and doing all these things. And I was just in such a dark, dark place back then. And that is why I'm so passionate to this day about mental health and like helping women step into their power and like heal, because I know what it's like to feel really, really shit about yourself and to basically have no desire to live. And so coming out of that on the other side after like, I think it took me like 3.5 years. I never worked with a therapist either, because for me, like I had one session and I was like, this is just not helping. Like, this is not what I feel like is supporting me right now. And so I talked a lot with my mom, and I worked a lot on myself. Like I dove into personal development when I was literally 15 years old. And I started reading all these books that people recommend on spiritual awakening and like working on your mindset and flipping your life around and improving yourself. And so this is how I got into mental health and personal growth. And obviously the effects were tremendous. Like I completely changed. Like I became a whole new person. And it just showed me that really anything is possible in life. And like you can be anything and anyone you want if you're so committed to working on yourself. And so yeah, I guess my depression was like the catalyst, and then taking the step to like start a personal brand obviously then was the catalyst for me becoming an entrepreneur further down the line, and like having a coaching business and having a podcast and programs and clients and like all those things. So yeah, long story short, that's what's been happening.
I love that. And I'm curious, you have a podcast and it's called Unfuck Your Life. So would you say that that means you think at one point your life was fucked?
It was totally fucked.
Yeah.
Like,
And of course, like, you were a child when this was all happening and you were 15 dealing with depression. After you, kind of started your spirituality and mental health journey, was it smooth sailing for you or has it been a bumpy road? What have you kind of dealt with?
no, it's been totally up and down. I guess for no one, I don't think for anyone there's like a linear process when it comes to personal growth. There will always be challenges. There will always be
Mhm.
hardships. There will always be situations where you're like, fuck, I thought I could deal with that way, way better, right? Like, because when you're self-aware and you're conscious and you know yourself, like that is great. And that makes a lot of things a lot easier, like handling relationships or making more money or, like creating a dream life. But still, like you're a human being and there will still be triggers popping up along the road. There will still be situations where you feel like your life is crumbling and falling apart. Like for me, earlier this year, I was going through a breakup from a long-term partner that I thought I would marry eventually. So like, and that was a choice I made consciously for myself. And it's like, it's those kind of moments in life when you're like, whoa, like this feels really fucking tough, even though I feel like I've come a long way already, right? And so it's totally not a linear process. I think a lot of people expect that once you hit a certain level of self-awareness or you've healed to a certain degree, that then magically everything will fall into place. And truth is, yes, there will be a lot of things being easier and like you'll be able to magnetize and create and attract more things into your life more effortlessly. And at the same time, it's ongoing. Like even the inner work is a consistent process. A lot of people think, oh, I'm gonna journal for like 1 month straight and then I'll be healed and then everything will be great, or I'm meditating for like 10 days in a row and then I should be fine. It's like, no, you're supposed to put in that effort every single day, because otherwise you'll stop feeling the amazing effects from working on yourself, having a mentor, reading books, meditating, journaling, eating well, working out, whatever it is, right? And so it's totally not been like perfect or like eventually super easy. It's become easier. But I don't think that anyone will ever reach this point of like, oh, I'm enlightened now and like everything is like so like, yeah, like effortless. Like things will still require effort. Like that's just the hard truth.
What do you feel like is the first step for someone to take if they're navigating a really hard time? They potentially, they see people like you living this like really magnetic, beautiful, like spiritual life and of course Instagram's like a highlight reel. And again, I love that you mentioned that breakup because I was going to ask about it because, obviously it's a real thing. Like, and even years into your spiritual journey and years into the relationship, you decided, I'm going to do this hard thing. But what do you feel like, if someone's lost and lacking direction, what would you say is like step number one for them to start pulling themselves out of a rut?
So for me, the number one thing whenever I was struggling, and there's been multiple, situations on my journey where I was like, wow, like this feels really hard, like I'm struggling, is understanding that this is only temporarily. Like you're not gonna stay there forever. Like even when I was depressed, and I was depressed for a good 3 years, I thought this was gonna last forever and my life was over, but it really wasn't. And so it's a conscious decision that you make to not let yourself down, because when you got your own back and you know you can always still lean on yourself no matter how messy your external reality is and how painful things are and how difficult to navigate, like knowing that you can trust yourself and lean on yourself is priceless. And so having the ability to lead yourself through hardships, and this is why I'm talking a lot about self-leadership, family leadership, and business and life and romance, because this is really a skill to have that will change your life, because no matter what happens, and shit will always happen, like let's face it, shit is always going to hit the fan eventually, like sooner or later for anyone. Like no one is immune to that, no matter how smart you are, how enlightened you are, how spiritual you are, shit is naturally going to happen. That's just life. And once we come to a point of acceptance, like yeah, like okay, like things will not always be smooth sailing, and that's okay, and I know how to hold myself in it. That's a really good thing. That's a really good skill and ability to have, essentially. And so the first step is cultivating that self-trust and that connection to yourself, because ultimately when you have that, anything on the outside can crumble or feel like it's crumbling, falling apart. It's really just realigning itself, right? But like when it feels like it's crumbling, knowing that I got myself and I can rely on myself and I'm showing up for myself in whichever way, like sleeping well and like eating well and moving your body and doing your journaling, doing your meditation, like that is under your control still. Anything external, like someone breaking up with you, like for me, I broke up, but like let's say someone's breaking up with you, or like you're being let go of your like in your at your job, right? Or like anything that is super painful, uncomfortable. There's still things that are under your control though. Like again, like your routines, your habits, the way you're perceiving yourself, the way you're holding yourself in it. And so when you stay in charge of those things, that's very empowering, because then you're like, okay, I'm letting go of anything that's outside of my control. And at the same time, I am controlling the things that I can control, like how I'm showing up for myself, how I'm taking care of myself, right? And so the first step is really having that self-leadership ability, cultivating that self-trust and looking after yourself. Like if I wouldn't have looked after myself back then, I would have been like devastated. And I mean, I was already like really low energy, and like it was really, really bad when I was depressed. And also when I was going through my breakup earlier this year, it was obviously super emotional. And I put my work on hold for a couple of weeks to really look after myself and get support. And like if I wouldn't have done that, like I wouldn't be here, like being better than ever, basically, right? It's like so important to look after yourself, prioritize yourself, and the things that you know will give you strength, will give you joy, and will help you come back to yourself and into your alignment, essentially. And so these are two really important steps to take. I would say the third one is really allowing yourself to receive support. I think a lot of women are always like, oh, I got it. Like I can do it all by myself. And like, I have to do it all by myself. Like no one wants to help me anyways. I don't want to be a burden, like all those old naggy beliefs, right? And so for me, really shifting that to no, people in my circle love to support me, love to show up for me, just like I love to show up for them. And so letting yourself be held is a really beautiful thing that allows you to just understand you're never alone, and like you don't have to go through everything that's difficult in life alone, and you're not a burden by asking for help and like asking someone, can you come over and hold me? Like I need to like talk to someone. I need to get a little cry, right? Like it's just like so beautiful. And so these are really three things that I think will make a huge difference when you're at this point where you're like, everything is shit right now. So building self-trust, self-leadership skills, leaning on yourself, having a strong connection to yourself. Then secondly, looking after yourself in all the ways, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. Because how you're feeling physically is going to impact how you're feeling mentally and emotionally. And then also cultivating community, surrounding yourself with people who want best for you, having a coach, a therapist, a mentor, like someone who can hold space for you, and understanding you're not like in this by yourself. Like you don't have to go through this. You don't have to suffer in silence, essentially.
I think that those like genuinely couldn't be like three better steps.
Oh,
I fully agree. And as someone who, again, has been in a dark place and pulled myself out of it, I think that those are like the exact steps that I would tell my friend as well if they were going through a hard time. And I think even like the community part, like, having people around you, it's something that like have only like recently like fully discovered. And it's so like it is such a game changer to like not even need to ask for help, but just to be so held in like your feminine friendships. Like it's crazy. Like I recently went through a breakup as well. And like the way my friends showed up for me without like me saying anything was like insane. Like showing up at my doorstep with flowers, like holding me, just like, getting me food when I was like too sad to cook for myself. Like it's like I know obviously it's a privilege to have those sort of friendships, but it's so important to be able to accept and receive that love.
Wow.
But for anyone
Because
who
it's home. Like,
yeah,
no.
exactly. But I think that for like, cultivating trust in yourself and leadership within yourself, I think that, everything that you said is a really great tactical tips, like, showing up for yourself, whether it's journaling, meditating, speaking to someone, working out. But for someone who hasn't quite cultivated that trust in themselves, what would you say is your like, number one recommendation to start cultivating that trust? Because you know,
Yeah.
I think I think a lot of people don't necessarily feel like they don't trust themselves. They
Yeah.
don't have self-discipline. They don't know if they can rely on themselves. And a quote that like has helped me kind of through that is that like you've survived 100% of your worst days. And so like for me, like that's what kind of brings me back to myself, knowing, okay, me and me have done this. Like we've
Yeah.
survived everything. I know I can trust myself. I know that I have discipline with myself to get out of bed in the morning and do all these things. But for someone who maybe hasn't quite yet cultivated that, what would be your first step for them?
I love that. And I love that you're also mentioning self-trust and self-discipline in the same sentence because they so go hand in hand. When you have self-discipline and you have devotion to showing up for yourself, then that's naturally going to cultivate self-trust. So the number one thing, and that's something I tell my clients all the time that makes it super easy, is to essentially stick to your own word. Like when you're setting yourself out to do something, go and actually do it. And so a lot of people will be like, okay, I'm gonna like start meditating every day for like 3 weeks in a row, and I've never done it before. Chances are that this is actually a really far-fetched goal because chances just are, life will happen, you'll snooze, like you'll sleep in, like you have to rush to work, whatever. Like things are gonna happen. So can you set really, really small goals for yourself? Like can you make the bar really, really low in the first place at
Mm.
least? Like so not eventually, but like to get started, can you make mini commitments to yourself, like micro promises? Like for instance, okay, like I have this cup of tea here and I'm gonna finish it within the next hour. So because I want to stay hydrated. It's like a mini, it's like so
Mhm.
easy, right? It's
Yeah.
almost like it would be ridiculous to not do that because I set it out for myself and I want to stay hydrated. I know my why. I'm feeling connected to my why, which is really important as well. Like I know why I want to, stay hydrated well because I want to feel great. I want my skin to glow. I want to have energy, mental clarity, all the things. So like that is such a small, simple thing to do. And when I do it, my subconscious will notice because your subconscious notices everything that you do or that you don't do that you said you would do. Same goes the other way around. If you're like, oh, I'm no longer gonna text my ex, but then you're texting your ex, guess what? You're breaking your self-trust.
Mhm.
So how can you ensure you're not doing that? If you have to delete his number, delete his number. Yeah, it hurts, but like don't break the promises you're making to yourself, the small ones and the big ones. A lot of people will kind of be like, oh, like this is just a small thing, like doesn't really matter. Well, it does, because again, your subconscious is picking up on it and is gonna remember it forever. And so for me, it was like the small little tiny things, like, or even like, okay, I'm gonna do 5 sit-ups right now. Like 5, like it's nothing, right? It's ridiculous. But doing it, saying it, I'll do it, and then actually doing it and following through has a tremendous effect. And from there, you
Yes.
work your way up. It doesn't always have to be like these tiny little, but like to get started, it's a really great way to get started, and it builds self-trust just because you said you would do something and then you're following through with it. And your
Mhm.
subconscious is like, oh, she's the kind of person who says something and then she actually does it.
Yeah.
Right? She's not making excuses. She's not gonna like go the easy route. Like she's actually showing up and doing it. And again, you are starting to shift your identity because essentially what happens is your self-image changes. You start seeing yourself as the kind of person who holds themselves accountable, who sticks to their own word, who follows through no matter what. And that is powerful. That is how you start trusting yourself, because you're like, well, I give my word and I will keep it to myself, but then also to others. It's like, oh, I'll be at dinner at 7 p.m. and then you're running late again. And like, that used to be me. 110%, ask all of my friends. And now it's like, well, if that means I have to set a timer and actually get ready like 30 minutes earlier than I usually would just to be on fucking time, I will go the extra mile just to not disappoint myself or anyone else that I've made a promise to. And so that's a really, really great, simple, easy way to get started building more self-trust.
I, again, obsessed with your answer. I could not agree more. Like, what you were kind of saying is like how you do one thing is how you do everything. So,
100%.
so if it's like the little thing, like I'm gonna finish this cup of tea in the next hour versus I'm gonna make the promise to myself that I'm gonna go to the gym, 6 days this week, like baby steps. And also another thing that kind of like it's more like in the gym, but you can apply, this theory to a lot of your life is like you're really only cheating yourself, right? So when I'm in the gym and I'm like, okay, I wanted to do 10 reps, and then like I used to do like 6, 7, 8, or 9. I'm like, why the fuck am I not doing the entire rep? The only person I'm cheating here is myself. You know what I mean? And even if you can't like follow through with yourself on like something so minuscule as that and give it 100%, like again, how you do one thing is how you do everything. Like, are you gonna half-ass everything in your life, or are you gonna are you gonna instill that confidence in yourself that no matter what, you will show up because you're gonna give yourself 100%. So
Mm.
I really, really, really love that answer. And I think it's such a tactical way for anyone to start trusting themselves and building that self-discipline. Like it really does start small. And even if it's like, there's so many different ways that this like impacts our lives, even like, making your bed every day. It's not
Oh,
the
yeah.
act of making your bed every day. It's the discipline of doing it because it's a small thing. And if you can show yourself that you can do that every day, then you can do
Can
anything.
do anything. You literally become
Literally.
unstoppable. Yeah, because like again, as you said, like it starts small, but then it builds up to the big things as well.
Yeah.
100%.
So I really want to talk about your coaching. You are the founder of a holistic coaching academy. Um, I have never heard that before, so I'd really love to know what a holistic coaching approach means to you, and then just talk more about your coaching in general.
Yeah, for sure. So for me, basically since I started my coaching practice, which again has been like 7 or 8 years ago, I always made sure that I would approach my clients as the whole human, because I personally, and I found that within myself as I was working on myself, right? Like you can't just fix one thing. Like you can't just work on your mindset, because like everything goes hand in hand. Like a lot of people always say, oh, mindset work, mindset work. And that is totally true. Mindset work is powerful. It's great. Like it's great to change your beliefs and to release them and to, like do affirmations and all that stuff is super powerful. And at the same time, we're holistic beings. And even more so, we're living in a physical body that stores trauma, that still stores emotions, like fears, especially fears. For a lot of people, hold them back, right? And that is not necessarily just something that you can release through the mind, like through mental work, but it's something that you release through the body, because emotions, think about it, the emotions are felt in the body, not in your mind. You can think about your fears and you can have limiting beliefs like, oh, I'm afraid to approach this guy because I'm afraid of rejection, for instance. That is mental, but the emotion you feel in your body, in your physical body. And so we need somatic work and somatic tools to release that on an emotional level so that we can feel safe, because otherwise we'll be in fight or flight, right? Like, or in freeze mode, like, oh, I'm not going to walk over there saying hi to this person. And so essentially, the holistic approach means that you're working with your mind, body, and soul. Like you're seeing yourself as a spiritual being in a physical body, and you consider that that is part of the work that you need to do as well. And by holistic, we really mean we have quite a spiritual approach. So we also consider manifestation, we consider energies, we talk about chakras inside of ECA. So we're teaching our students a lot, because ultimately, when clients come to you, they may have some symptoms, and it's not necessarily like mentally related. And so oftentimes it's like an energetic imbalance, and then you want to look at someone's chakra, and like it's just so much more than just the, oh, like, let's work on your mindset kind of thing. And so for me, yeah, creating ECA, like a huge why was really about, and this is why it's called the Embodied Coach Academy. It's really about embodying the things that you already know, because a lot of people know a lot. They have a lot of knowledge because they listen to podcasts and they read books and they're educating themselves. However, it's about like the application and the integration of that knowledge, right? Like if you don't apply, integrate, and embody what you already know, your life is not going to tremendously change. However, if you do so, then you'll start seeing tangible results within yourself and your life. And so for us, it's really about being embodied in the work that you do, especially as a coach and as a leader, as a mentor, as a guide, as a healer. It's like, do you actually practice what you preach? Like, do you embody what you're teaching? Like for me, I talked about self-love in the beginning for a long time until I realized I'm not fully unconditionally loving myself. And that to me then felt inauthentic. Like I could talk about it, but I was like, I don't fully love myself. I still love myself conditionally. I still have to prove my worth through achievement, productivity, working hard. That's not unconditional love. So who am I to fucking talk about love, even though I know about self-love and I know the concept of it and I know how to work on it. But if I'm not really doing it myself, that's not embodied. Then I'm not an embodied coach. And so I really started embodying every single thing that I'm teaching. And that to me made the biggest shift. And like it's felt on an energetic level as well. Like people start seeing you as a leader because you see yourself as a leader, because you know, again, that you practice what you preach, you embody it, like you're a living, breathing example of it. And so this is why for me, it's not just about knowing a lot of stuff and like, you know, having tools and techniques like that is powerful. And are you embodied in the work that you're doing? Are you living it? Are you breathing it? I personally love to teach from my own experience. And I can only do that if I've experienced it and if I've navigated it. Like now I can coach my clients on how to navigate a breakup successfully because I've done that successfully myself. It's authentic, it's embodied, right? And so for me, this was like a huge driver when I was creating ECA back in the days.
Interesting. I love that. And I mean, and I think that's like out of any like sort of like coaching things that I've heard, I think that that's probably the one that resonates with me most because I do feel like people like there is so much knowledge, right? And knowledge is free. Like we have so many free resources and I think where people falter is the application. So I'm really curious if, when your clients, meet up with you, what is kind of like the medium in which you take a look at their life, and kind of help them apply these different things? Like, how does that work? Are they telling you, this is what I'm dealing with, this is what I'm going through, I need help, or, kind of like what's the format?
Yeah, so like I mean, it depends on the program, the container, because I have different containers by now, but let's say someone is a private client. So then essentially they're filling out an application form where they're giving me other symptoms. Like, oh, I'm a perfectionist. Oh, I'm a high achiever. Oh, I play small in my relationships. Maybe they're already aware, like, oh, I have low self-worth, whatever. So like they're giving me that. And then what I essentially do is I do a live audit. On the first call, we usually dive into all the areas that they want to improve. And then over the course of the coaching program, we essentially look at the root causes, because if you are not aware of the root cause, you can't heal it, you can't release it, and then you can't fundamentally change your life. Like a lot of people work at like a surface level where it's like, oh, like I'll just start changing this, but it's like it actually goes way deeper. And sometimes the root is like it's so much deeper than we think. So and for instance, like let's say like someone has a father wound that will show up in so many different ways. If you have a father wound, you could be like trying to prove your worth through your achievement. You could have difficult relationship with men. Like there can be like a billion different aspects of life where actually the father wound is showing up. So when you understand, oh, this is like my father wound, and you heal the root cause, and you can, essentially release all the emotional charge around the relationship you had with your father. And I'm giving this as an example because that was me, for instance. Then
I was like, how'd you know?
Exactly, right? Like you want to figure out what is the root cause, and you figure that out by working with someone, for instance. I mean, and sure, you can like get to the root cause by yourself, but like if you feel like you're kind of stuck on something and you feel like there's repeating patterns in your life, but you can't put the finger on it, what is it? then having a mentor, having a coach is really great because they help you figure out what it is, how to heal it for good, how to change it, how to shift it for good. And then again, like your entire life will start rearranging itself as you stopped operating from this wounded place in different aspects of your life. Again, like it doesn't just impact your relationships. There may be physical symptoms that disappear. There may be in your career, you may get a pay raise, like your other people will start treating you different. Like it just has so many different effects on your life when you heal something that is within you that is completely out of alignment because of something that you learned or experienced in the past and the emotions that you're still holding on to, right? A lot of patterns, a lot of coping mechanisms that we have stem from something from the past, from our childhood. And so it's not just about understanding that and, releasing the beliefs and doing the mental work, but also like releasing the emotional charge around the event that happened. And so, this is why I love doing one-on-one work as well, because in my group containers, we do a lot of that as well, but it's like obviously more tailored to like a group setting. So like these are usually more teaching based, with hot seats, obviously. But yeah, that's why I love my one-on-one containers, for instance, is because you get to go so deep and really see someone and really like take someone on this whole journey of self-discovery, of unlearning, of remembering, of releasing, and of stepping into their power and potential.
I love that. And how did you kind of step into the role of coach? Like what inspired you to make the shift of, I think that I can help other people do this. I'm sure there was like a lot of imposter syndrome involved with that. So I'm just curious how you kind of overcame that as well.
So when I started, so it was actually funny because again, I had a personal brand and I was sharing a lot about mindset and my own journey. And eventually people started reaching out. Like I was never positioning myself as a leader, as a mentor, as a coach. Like I literally got inquiries from my community being like, hey, I love you. I love your mindset. I love how you're doing life essentially. Like, can I work with you? Is there any way I can get involved with you?
I
And
love
like
that.
have your eyes on me? And I was like, not currently, but sure, let's see. We can hop on a call and like see if we're vibing and if I can help. And then we did that and it was amazing. And I realized, oh, like this conversation, like I guess like there was like a natural ability for me to like understand her and see her potential and also understand like how to guide her through this. But I obviously had no coaching tools. I wasn't certified at that point. Like nothing really. It was just my own experience, my own knowledge, and like what I've done for myself and kind of like helping her with the same thing. And so that was incredible. And she got mind-blowing results. And I shared those, and then like more and more people started approaching me. And that's kind of like how my one-on-one practice grew back in the days, was through me helping people and then sharing the results, and then more people being like, I want to see results as well. Like I want this too, essentially. And eventually in 2019, I had the desire to really deepen my knowledge and my skill set and upgrade a little bit. So I got certified myself as first like a certified life and success coach, then as a master mindset coach, and then also as a coaching trainer. So I did 3 certifications in total, essentially. The last one would enable me basically to create my own certification program, which I then did in 2021. Which is the Embodied Coach Academy that you were asking about earlier. So, and that really helped with like just feeling more solid and more confident. In the beginning, I definitely had some imposter. I was like, who am I to help this girl?
Mhm.
But then I obviously quickly realized like, oh, she is getting results though. And I'm sure there's even more there. Like I could be even better. I could go even deeper with her. And so that's when I decided to upskill and to deepen my knowledge and to get certified. And ever since then, there's been no more imposter, basically, because I know what I can rely on. I have my toolkit, but I also, at the same time, as we said earlier, have my embodied experience. And I know what I've been through myself, and I know that I can help people go through the same process. Because essentially what it's about creating frameworks and processes that will help people. Like I'm still to this day making up new tools and creating my own little tools to help people that I know will work because they've worked for me in the past as well. And so it's really about trusting your own experience. And obviously that comes with time. Like again, I've been doing this for like almost a decade. But yeah, essentially like having a certification is really great because you got this. Like you know what to rely on to like help someone because you've learned it essentially. It's like you studied it almost, right?
Mhm.
And so for me, what really, really helped was, really relying on myself and like eventually upskilling and just seeing my clients get results. Obviously,
Yeah,
when you
I can imagine.
and they see results, that's like really reaffirming and reassuring.
I love that. And with your, again, kind of circling back to like, this not being a linear path, you were in this long-term relationship. What kind of made you realize that maybe this wasn't your path? And how did you deal with that? How did you have like this embodied breakup? And because I mean, again, this is something that so many women struggle with, and even myself, like breakups can be like so incredibly devastating to our lives. Like they can disrupt so much for us. I think especially as women, we're such empaths that like our relationships carry a lot of weight in our day-to-day lives, and even just like how we're dealing with if we're arguing with men, like we're having a terrible day. So I'm really curious as to how that breakup came about, especially because you were the one that kind of decided to initiate the breakup. So how did that kind of go down for you?
Yeah, totally. So for context, we've been together for 3.5 years. At the time that I decided to uncouple. And it's interesting too, because also for context, he's my first relationship. Like
Oh wow.
I got together with him when I was 24 and a half years old. It was like in summer, at my birthday's in December. So I was 24 and a half. And until that point, I mentioned the father wound before, right? So like basically my father wound was the root cause and the main reason why I've never gotten into a romantic relationship earlier than that. And even when we started dating in summer 2020, I had so much resistance. I was like, I'm not ready to open my heart. Men are not safe. I don't want to get hurt, because that's what I've learned during my childhood, right? Like as I was witnessing the relationship of my parents. And so I had a lot of limiting beliefs around men. I felt very unsafe. I also just didn't see myself as a relationship person. I was genuinely telling myself, I'm just not for relationships, like literally. And so my entire identity shifted, obviously, as I entered that relationship. And I went from hyper independent and being very much like, I don't need you, da, 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 like kind of keeping him at a distance, over to eventually becoming a little bit anxiously attached and like a little bit dependent on him emotionally almost. And so that was really interesting for me to witness. But that was like my own process in the relationship. But essentially, what I realized over the years was, even though we were such a great fit and we generally were best friends, like the strongest aspect of our relationship was our friendship. Like we literally get along so well. We actually still are friends. Like a lot of people are irritated when I'm posting him on my stories, like, hey, we're going for a beach walk or a coffee date. People will be like, but didn't you guys break up? I'm like, yes, we did. And we're still friends. And
Hmm.
that works for us right now. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna say like it's gonna work forever, but it works right now. And it feels
Yeah.
really good for both of us right now. And so that was always the strongest aspect of our relationship. And like the foundation almost was our friendship, and then the unconditional love that we had for each other, because we really saw each other. We really, really saw each other. And I also, and him too, we changed a lot over the years. Again, I got with him when I was 24. Now I'm 28. And I changed a lot. I grew a lot. And him too, we grew together in a lot of different ways, like career-wise, emotionally, mentally. Like we became whole new versions of ourselves. And I really think that we made each other better people, like
Yeah.
110%. This was so meant to be. And I also still think we're soulmates, but I think we can have multiple soulmates during our lifetimes, right? And so he was definitely a soulmate, and he still is a soulmate in a way. I consider him family. Like if he needs me, I'll always be there. However, what I realized as I was changing and healing within the relationship, but also like really on my own, because I obviously have my own practice and my own personal journey that I am on, because I'm still my own human, right? I realized who I actually am now that I'm 28. Because again, my birthday was in December, and then in January, we had a lot of like roadblocks, and we had roadblocks over the years. We had ups and we had downs. We had seasons where we were kind of like navigating some hard stuff and we were questioning things, but we always came back to the decision that no, we want to make this work. And in January this year, I was at a point where I actually realized I'm not sure if I want to make this work anymore, just because it feels so damn hard right now. And we've been trying to overcome certain things for a really long period of time. And there is no major change or progress. And I'm not just like talking about, oh, he should have, I'm saying it's mutual. Like both of us had our stuff that we would have had to fundamentally change in order to both thrive in the relationship. And at that point earlier this year, we were both happy, we're both okay, but we were not thriving. And my standard for myself in my life, when it comes to my career, my finances, my health, my friendships, all the things, is to thrive, not just be okay. And so I realized, well, I don't really feel like the fullest expression of myself in this relationship. Because ultimately it felt a lot like a friendship. And then obviously there was love, but I also realized, like, for me in a romantic relationship, I need more and I have certain needs that he has a really hard time meeting, and vice versa. And so like I sat him down and I was like, look, like this is how I'm feeling right now. And like we've been talking about, it's been kind of like a build up. Like we've been talking about it many times. And during that one time I said to him, like, look, I don't feel like this is actually gonna change as of right now. Like we're both like so busy with our own stuff. And it doesn't feel like there's this point of like, yeah, like we're actually changing things. And I think it's better if we couple now and like stay friends if we can at that time. And it just doesn't feel like it's both serving us. Like ultimately we are in a relationship because it adds to our lives. And the connection itself was adding, but the romantic aspect wasn't really adding to either of our lives. And so I think ultimately at the end of the day, what may have shifted is our values, what we value in a partnership, not in life, because we had very similar life values, but not so much in a partnership. Like what I value in a relationship differs from what he values in a relationship. And so it was kind of hard then to obviously like fulfill both of our needs, right? And it's the hardest thing in the world when there's still so much love. Like I think when you've fallen out of love, it's still super hard, but then at least it's like, well, it's like there's no more love, so it doesn't even make sense to be in a relationship. For us, it was quite the opposite. There was still so much love, so essentially I was breaking my own heart. And I also at the same time knew that this was happening for us and this was the best thing for us at that moment, just because of so many things that, yeah, just like kept showing up where I was like, this is not what I want in a romantic partnership. I wouldn't mind if this was like a friendship, but if it's a romantic partnership, I have different standards. I have boundaries. Like I have different values. Like this is not what I would want from a romantic partnership. And so, and he basically agreed. I think he was willing to make it work and like try a little harder for a little longer. But I think ultimately what really happened was we both got to just really focus on ourselves and see who we are without the other person, because oftentimes we lose ourselves in a relationship. And I'm going to share this openly, a huge mistake I made was I overly focused on him. Like I, again, during the relationship became a little bit anxiously attached, which is funny because entering the relationship, I was hyper independent and like keeping him at a distance. And that changed during the relationship, and it makes sense as in like why that happened for me because of my like past and my childhood and my father and all those things. But it was like, oh, I don't want to feel this way, right? And so we both basically realized like we both have stuff to heal within ourselves, and we both want something different out of a partnership, and that's okay, because I think a lot of people make it wrong. It's like, oh, but you have to try harder, you have to make it work. Like literally people unfollowed me because I broke up with him, and I talked about it openly. I think about a month after it happened, people were unfollowing me because they were like, oh, but like you should have tried harder, like you're promoting throwing something good away. It's like, no, I'm not promoting throwing something good away. I am promoting creating alignment in your life. And if something doesn't feel fully aligned, you are allowed to let it go, right?
Yeah.
And this is a very personal decision. And so, and also like people don't know the entire context, right? Like it's like, yeah, you know parts of it, bits and pieces, what I feel comfortable sharing, but you don't know the entire depth and all the details of our relationship and how we felt. And like, yeah, so I think overall, I think it's really, really important to choose, is it worth keep trying, or have we tried long enough to understand that actually nothing is fundamentally changing? And yeah, so basically we decided to stay friends, and we were really, really close after the breakup. We were still calling every day. We were already living apart at that time. So we were still calling every day, spending some weekends together to like, because we have dogs together as well. And then eventually I realized like to really, you know, emotionally detach a little bit more. We need more time by ourselves. So we then like, and it was like really nice because we both kind of like agreed like it's like better to smooth it out like a little like step by step and not go like no contact.
Yeah.
Again, for a lot of people that works and that's great. We both were on the same page as in like, okay, we still have dogs together and we still want to be in touch. And we're just like easing it out a little bit over the weeks and like it just got less and less and less. And that really helped. And then when I moved to a place closer to where he lives right now, like no, we're seeing each other almost every single day. And it worked because we had that period of like way less contact in the past couple of weeks. And that's how we handled it. And it works really, really well. And like I'm so happy. I know he's doing a lot better now as well. And we are so grateful to still be in each other's lives. Like it's insane. And it just feels so much more aligned this way. It just for me, and I also think for him, feels so much more aligned to be friends because that was always the number one aspect like that kind of got us together in the first place was our friendship. And so yeah, long story short, that's a little breakup journey.
No, I love it. And I think that it's like criminally underrated to like break up with someone even when things are good because you know that you can have something great. Like
Exactly.
I think people really operate from a scarcity mindset, especially in their romantic relationships, like because, they think they need to make it work and they need to like I literally have like girlfriends right now who like are going through this and I'm like, "Babe, I mean, it's a canon event, like they'll figure it out themselves, but I'm like, it's not supposed to be like this." And they're like, "Well,
Mm,
it's good a lot of the time." Oh my God, why are you settling for good? That's
yeah,
crazy. Like things can be great. Things can feel like so effortless and so easy and all these things. So I think it's
exactly.
really brave of you to do that, not only for yourself, but for him. Like that was an act of love for him as well. Like you're
100%. I kept
he
saying that.
deserves more. He deserves a love that is fully in alignment, as do you. You know what I mean?
Exactly. It's really, but I love that you're mentioning alignment here because I think a lot of people don't realize you can be compatible in a lot of ways, but also not compatible in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. And ultimate alignment happens when most things that are for you are non-negotiables are in place. And for
Yeah.
me, a lot of non-negotiables weren't, and for him either. And so it's like, why do people like judge so much, like it's like why can't you accept that someone says yeah there is a better fit out there for me, like even when you have a well-paid job it's like yeah you can leave your well-paid job to make way more money at another job or even become self-employed. Like why is there so much
Mhm.
judgment around women claiming even more, trusting
Yeah.
that there's something even more aligned out there for
Mhm.
them? It's like so sad.
Yeah, it is. And I just think it's like really, really brave of you. And I honestly, and I even love that you guys have stayed friends because I think that in today's like dating culture, people are like, you have to go no contact. And it's like,
Yeah.
maybe if you're in like a toxic relationship, but like, and even in the relationship that I was just in, we are still very good friends. Like,
Mm,
again, it was very important to us that we remained friends. The connection feels good as it is, like as friends. Like, if it starts to not, I will take inventory of that and we will change things. But for right now, like it's been so nice just like easing it off and like being there for each other, emotionally and like helping each other out with different things because like that's kind of how we worked and that's why the relationship was, so good and it's just the relationship just looks different now and it looks like a friendship and I love that. I think that when you're a mature adult and you had a relationship that was full of love, like you can make it however the fuck you want it to make. Like, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to look
totally.
like anything else's. But then again, I have girlfriends that are going through toxic breakups and they're like, well, you're still talking to your ex. And I'm like, my ex respects me and loves
Right.
me and loves me. Like, I know we're
Yeah,
not together, but
yeah.
like we had a
Oh
very
my God.
respectful mutual breakup.
Oh
It's
my God. Yes.
like, and I'm like, well, your boyfriend cheated on you, babe. Like maybe you shouldn't talk to him. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
I
I
hear you.
really love that you said, fuck the haters. I'm doing this the way that I want to. And I love that you're like sharing it because again, it's brave because, people are going to impose their judgment on you, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, people will be like, well, you should go no con like this is the rule of like a breakup. Almost it's like if it works for you, great. But
Yeah.
there's nuances, like everything is like so perfect like for us, it was a personal decision to say we wanted this way. And like it sounds very similar for you guys.
Mhm.
And it's like, why create all these rules, like how things must be, should be? It's like
Yeah.
you get to choose what feels right for you, because every connection is unique, every dynamic is unique. And again, like context really, really matters. And for us, it was always a matter of like, we feel like we're family. We're going to be in each other's lives, hopefully forever, because we really like each other and see each other as we are. Like, I'll always support him. I'll always be there for him. I'll always have his back. Like, just because I really like him as a person. And so for me, oftentimes it's like, well, if you go no contact and like talk shit about your ex, it's like, you were with that person for a period of time. You chose that person for a period of time. Why did you choose them in the first place?
Exactly. Like
If you
your
know
partner is a reflection of how much you love yourself.
exactly.
Like,
Exactly. And it's like, why do you talk shit about them if you chose to be with them for such a long time? Well, maybe you had trauma and that's why you stayed with them, but then it's your responsibility to work on that trauma rather than just blaming that person,
mhm.
because you ultimately allowed a lot of things, right? If you treat
Exactly.
it like shit, that's horrible. There is no explanation for that. But also at the same time, it's like, well, you co-create every single dynamic that you're in. That is a
Exactly.
hard truth. It is the truth.
Takes two to tango, really. And I not to, there's this like quote, and it's a cheesy quote from like an American movie that it's you accept the love that you think you deserve. And
Exactly.
for a long time, I was like, what the fuck is she saying? And then
Mm,
I realized like you stepping away from that relationship because you wanted more is simply because you love yourself more. Like you love yourself more, you want more for yourself. And like, if you allow yourself to be in like a toxic situation and let someone like walk all over you, cheat on you, and you go back and go back and go back, you
mm.
you don't love yourself. You don't respect yourself. And like your partner truly is a reflection of how much you care about yourself because
That is so
it's what
true.
you're choosing to engage in every single day. Like exactly, like it does take two
Yeah,
to
you're choosing it. If you're allowing it, you're choosing it. It's like, of course, it's like, oh, it feels more passive to allow than to choose, but ultimately you're passively choosing something if you're not changing it, and if
Mhm.
you're still allowing it, and if you're still settling for it. And I mean, I think for both of us, like we didn't really settle because it was good. It wasn't bad. But again, it's really about understanding what do I ultimately envision for myself, and can that person actually be that for me? Because we obviously have a clear idea, we know what we want. And it's like, if you really know what you want and you know who you are and what you bring to the table and what you know and think that you deserve, it's like it doesn't even mean the other person is not good enough. It just means they aren't right for you.
Yeah.
Like I kept saying to my ex, like it's not that you're not good enough or I'm not good enough. It's we're not right for each other in this romantic dynamic,
Yeah.
right?
It's simply
And
different.
exactly. So this is important to realize.
Yeah. Well, this has been such an amazing, insightful, inspirational episode. I so appreciate you coming on and sharing your time with me and my audience. Genuinely, like I see you, I hear you. You are such a beautiful person, and I really appreciate you coming on.
Vice versa.
If people want to find you, follow you, look into your coaching business, listen to your podcast, where can they find everything?
Yeah, so I have Instagram at Laura.Herde. I think, do you guys say Herde in America? I'm not sure how you're pronouncing my last name. How is it
In
pronounced?
my head, it was heard.
Oh, Herd. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then let's say Laura Herd. So it's Laura.Herd. That's my Instagram. I
And
have a
it's
link.
heard HERDE.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. That's good to know, actually. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I always thought like you guys would say Herdy for some reason. I'm not sure.
Well,
But
how do you pronounce it? Herdy?
um in German, because I'm German, right? Like it's Herde.
Okay. Well, yeah, no, it wasn't doing that.
So yeah, you could probably say both, like herd, herdy, whatever floats your boat. But like for me, I have my Instagram. My podcast is called Unfuck Your Life. It's on Anchor, iTunes, and Spotify as well. We can maybe put the link in the show notes. I
Mhm.
have an Instagram where there's like a link tree where everything is basically linked about my coaching containers. I send out weekly newsletters, so I recommend joining my email list always for some more free advice. And yeah, basically my DMs are always open. So if you have any questions on anything we discussed today or any of my containers, you can always DM me and I will always voice note you back.
Loves the
So
voice notes.
You love the voice notes.
I will have everything in the show notes to make it easy for everyone. But again, thank you guys so much. If you guys like this episode, please take a screenshot, share it to your stories, tag me, tag Laura, let her know that you loved it, and we will see you back next week.